I guess from COVID onto China, Home Affairs Secretary Mike Pezzulo's recent comments about the drums of war with China beating louder were incredibly candid, I thought, Andrew. Do you think that if we are considering going to war with the superpower, our biggest trading partner, Andrew, how do you think that we fix this relationship?
We need to have calmness and confidence. We need to be clear about our values and our differences on issues like human rights with China. But we also don't need to be banging the drums of war. In fact, that not only betrays the people of Taiwan, but it's not smart diplomacy. Let's look at how the Biden administration has handled this with a continued policy of strategic ambiguity. Japan, which has managed to maintain a much more carefully calibrated relationship with China. This is about domestic politics driving foreign policy, and it's very dangerous stuff. I would have thought that the hawks in China are delighted by people in Australia who are suggesting that war is inevitable. And Penny Wong gave an excellent speech last week talking about the risks that this poses and the importance of Australia finding the common ground on which we can collaborate with China around issues like climate change and pandemic preparedness, recognising our differences around the treatment of Uyghurs and around the detention of Australian journalists, and then being absolutely clear about our values. But we don't need this sort of talk of drums of war. It is dangerous stuff, and it betrays the 24 million Taiwanese who need Australia to be much more cool-headed as we manage this relationship.
I guess with those sort of issues as well, Julian, you can't help but think about iron ore, specifically coming out of WA, and I guess it is a bit of a concern of the local government in WA. Should Brazil and South Africa come online with their deposits and things like that? Are you a bit concerned in the government about how we fix this relationship? Because at this point in time, China still is one of our biggest trading partners, and we don't really want to go to war, do we?
Well, Jenna, I think you're right. That trade relationship is very important, and it's important in Western Australia. It's important for the whole country. But China purchases our iron ore for a whole range of reasons. Firstly, it's really good quality iron ore. Secondly, we have good supply lines. Thirdly, we're a good international citizen with the rule of law. So it is of benefit to, it's not just a benefit to our economy, it's a benefit to them and to other countries that purchase our resources and other products that we manufacture here. But it's part of having a good and reasonable strategic and defence policy that you prepare for every eventuality. And I think that's what the government has been doing with a range of its policies that it's been engaged in. And we've heard in recent times that the security agencies are telling us that the level of foreign interference in Australia is the highest it's ever been, higher than it has even been during the time of the Cold War. We've prepared a range of legislative responses to that, everything from the Foreign Relations Bill through to critical infrastructure legislation, because we acknowledge that the world that we're operating in now is a more uncertain world, and Australia needs to play its part. It's the reason why we have restored defence spending to above 2% of GDP. When we came to office, it was at the lowest level it had been since before World War II. We have to prepare for a range of strategic challenges that Australia is facing, given our place in the region today.
Well, Jenna, if we're getting the strategic...
Over to you, Andrew. One final word on China.
Thanks, Jenna. If we were getting the strategic policy right, then we'd be focused on the fact that around half the world's submarines are going to be operating in the Indo-Pacific in the 2030s. And we don't know how many of those will be Australian because of the government's botched handling of the Future Submarine Project and the Extension of Life project for the Collins-class submarines. That is a core strategic challenge that the government hasn't met. Yes, they're rolling out the red carpet from the Prime Minister visits defence sites, but they're not doing that hard work to ensure that we're properly prepared. They're also not recognising the value of us working within our region. I mean, part of the answer here is to engage with like-minded powers, just as the Hawke and Keating governments did in setting up the APEC leaders meeting, and building those relationships with countries like Indonesia and Singapore, Korea and Japan, where we know we've got that commonality of interest. That depends on having a strong policy on climate change. And while Australia is one of the recalcitrant nations holding back from net zero by 2050, it puts us as a country which finds it more difficult to operate within its region. For Pacific Island nations, this is a core issue, but we haven't been able to work with them on a range of other issues because our policy on climate change is so out of step with the rest of the world.